All right. Hi, everyone. This is my final project of determining which streaming service is best. My name is Eleni Huntalis, and let's get started. So, let's pick up where we left off. From my midterm project, we saw that Prime Video was the winner, and this was based on three criteria that I followed. It was the most prevalent streaming service in North America. The runtime was less than or equal to 120 minutes, and it had the best relative or average score of IMDb ratings. So these were the three criteria I led with. I felt like these were the three most important to what determines a good streaming service, but I wanted to see how Prime Video would do with my congression and uh, my correlation and regressional results and my significance test. So without further ado, these were my two claims for the correlation and regression analysis. I said for number one, a streaming service is considered good if the R value, which is the correlation coefficient between IMDb scores and Rotten Tomato ratings, is equal to or greater than 0.615. I chose this value of 0.615 as I'll further explain my data. You will see that my R values don't really go past 0.8, but many fall below or are extremely small. So I felt that 0.615 was a good middle point of what makes a strong positive relationship for the data, especially with IMDb scores and Rotten Tomato ratings. But for my second claim, I said a streaming service is considered good if it has the highest R squared value for runtime and Rotten Tomato ratings. And this was based on each scatter plot. Again, I just wanted to see, I wanted to put into more consideration for Rotten Tomato ratings, as I felt like for my midterm, I didn't really put that into consideration or put it into my data analysis as much as I wanted to. So with these two claims, let's start off with the first one. This is how I laid out the data with runtime, IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes, all factors with each streaming service. But as you can see, my R values below each one show a very weak and mostly positive linear relationship for across the board. As you can see, again, most of them don't even cross 0.8. So that, again, leads to having a very weak but positive linear relationship. And so if we just look at the IMDb scores and Rotten Tomato ratings, we see that these are each of the streaming services values, and it looks like Prime Video and Hulu were the only two to be greater than or equal to 0.615. Oops. Netflix and Disney were just shy away from it at 0.613 and then 0.612. So this leads to Prime Video and Hulu both getting a point. And let's go on to claim two, where I stated a streaming service is considered good if it has the highest R squared value for runtime and Rotten Tomatoes based on each scatter plot. And as you can see, my data isn't the most linear. It barely passes, but as you can see, most of the data is just kind of scattered throughout the scatter plot. Again, all streaming services having a weak and positive, weakly positive and linear relationship, but that again translates into my R squared values being very small. But the highest one did come from Hulu with an R squared value of 0.0787. So that led to Hulu getting another point, and these are the scores as of my correlation and regressional analysis. But let's go on to my significance tests. For my claims for population mean, I chose a streaming service is considered good if the mean IMDb of movie scores are at least 7.0. On average, movies on a good streaming service are at most 100 minutes long. A good streaming service is given a fresh status if the average Rotten Tomato score is 75% or higher. I felt that these were all good claims as to what makes a good streaming service, and I felt like these three encapsulated what it takes for a streaming service to be considered good. But for population proportion, I wanted to focus on two other things that I felt makes a good streaming service good. For the first claim, I said a streaming service is considered good if 50% or more of movies directed were by females. A streaming service is considered good if at most 80% of movies streamed are available in North America. Again, I am picking up pieces from my midterm project, but again, I just felt that those characteristics of each streaming service were ideal as to what makes a good streaming service. And I do want to preface that all the significance done throughout my project were done through the p-value approach. So keep that in mind. So as of my population mean claim 1 for Netflix and Prime Video, I set up my null and alternative hypothesis the same for each streaming service for this claim. For my null, I put mu is less than 7.0, and then for my alternative, mu is greater than or equal to 7.0, and I pretty much laid out each test the same as I put sample size, sample mean, the standard deviation, standard error, all across each test. But if we look at the p-value for Netflix, I got 0.04, which is less than my level of significance. So that led to me forming the conclusion that the sample data supports the claim that Netflix is the best streaming service of the mean IMDb of movie scores are at least 7.0. For Prime Video, I got a really small p-value, smaller than my level of significance, and with your p-value being smaller, this led to me concluding the fact that sample data does support the claim that Prime Video is the best streaming service if the mean IMDb of movie scores are at least 7.0. So let's go on to Hulu and Disney Plus. Again, same hypotheses. For my p-value for Hulu, I got 0.05, this being greater than my level of significance. I concluded that there is not sufficient enough sample evidence to support the claim that the mean IMDb of movie scores are at least 7.0 for Hulu. For Disney Plus, again, a small p-value, smaller than my level of significance. So this led to me rejecting my null hypothesis and concluding that the sample data does support the claim that Disney Plus is the best streaming service if the mean IMDb of movie scores are at least 7.0. So let's go on to claim 2. On average, movies on a good streaming service are at most 100 minutes long. And so as we can see with Netflix, I set up my null and alternative being that the null states that the mu is less than or equal to 100, and then for my alternative, mu is greater than 100. And so with that, this led to my p-value being greater than my level of significance, leading me to fail the null hypothesis and concluding that there's not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim for Netflix. And then for Prime, again, same setup of hypothesis. I did get a big p-value bigger than my level of significance, which led to me failing to reject the null hypothesis and concluding that there's not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim for Prime Video. And so let's continue on with Hulu and Disney Plus. For Hulu, got a pretty big p-value, bigger than my level of significance, so I failed to reject the null hypothesis and concluding that there's not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim for Hulu. For Disney Plus, I got a p-value of 0.017, smaller than my level of significance, so I rejected my null hypothesis and concluded that there is enough, or the sample data does support the claim that for Disney Plus that on average, the streaming service has movies that are at most 100 minutes long. So for my last claim for the population mean, this is how I set up my null and alternative. I said for my null that mu is equal to 75, and my alternative that mu is less than 75. So for Netflix, I got a p-value of 0.85. This p-value being greater than my level of significance, I failed to reject the null hypothesis and concluded that there is sufficient sample evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that Netflix is given a fresh status. For Prime Video, I got a small p-value that was smaller than my level of significance. Again, this led to me rejecting my null hypothesis and concluding that there is sufficient sample evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that Prime Video is given a fresh status of Netflix movies is 75% or higher. So let's look at Hulu and Disney Plus. Again, same hypotheses. My p-value for Hulu came out to be 0.65. This is greater than my level of significance, so I failed to reject the null hypothesis, and there's not sufficient sample evidence to warrant rejection of the claim for claim number 3 for Hulu. For Disney Plus, same thing. I got a p-value of 0.0008. This being smaller than my level of significance, I rejected my null hypothesis and concluded that there is sufficient sample evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that Disney Plus is given a fresh status. So, overall, this is how it's looking for each claim. As you can see, Disney Plus satisfied all 3. Hulu didn't satisfy anything. Prime Video only satisfied 1 claim, and Netflix only satisfied 2. So that updates the scores to this. Netflix, Prime Video, and Hulu all have 2, and Disney is winning with 3. But let's hope to get a tiebreaker and focus on the population proportion for each claim. My first one starting that streaming service is considered good if 50% or more movies directed for females for Netflix and Prime Video. Things are a little different for the proportion. I made sure that the conditions were satisfied, but my p-value ended up being 0.49. This being bigger than my level of significance, I failed to reject my null hypothesis, as if there's not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim that Netflix is considered a good streaming service if at least 50% of directors were females. So, also I set up my null and hypothesis as so p is greater than or equal to 0.5, and then p is less than 0.5. But same thing for Prime Video. As you can see, conditions weren't met, and my p-value ended up being really small. And this led to me rejecting the null hypothesis and concluding that there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that Prime Video is considered a good streaming service if at least 50% of directors are females. So for Hulu and Disney, same thing. But as of Hulu and Disney, the sample size only comes out to be 12 and 9 directors as of my sample set. And with these both being smaller than 10, I couldn't satisfy the conditions, and this led to just this claim for Hulu and Disney not being satisfied. So pretty sad for that. And then going on to claim number 2, I said that a streaming service is considered good if at most 80% of movies streamed are available in North America. This is how I set up my null and alternative. P is greater than or equal to 0.8, and then P is less than 0.8. And so conditions were met and satisfied, so my p-value came out to be 0.09, and this led to me failing to reject the null hypothesis, as there is not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim for Netflix. And then my p-value came out to be really small for Prime Video, and this led to me rejecting my null hypothesis and stating that the sample data supports the claim that Prime Video is considered a good streaming service for this claim. But for Hulu and Disney Plus, again, same thing. The conditions were not met for sample size, and therefore these two did not satisfy claim number 2. But overall, this is how it's looking. Netflix for both did not satisfy, or Hulu or Disney Plus did not satisfy. So the only one that satisfied these claims were Prime Video, and once again, Prime Video is looking like the winner for my final project. So congrats, Prime Video. You did it again. And I put a lot more focus on my Rotten Tomato scores. I did think that runtime and IMDb scores were still vital, but less attention were focused on them. I wanted to see how prevalent female directors were in the sample set. And having most movies available in North America is still a key criteria for what I think for college students, as we're all located in North America. So that is my conclusion. Thank you, and have a happy holidays.